Bitcoin is now at $80,000. I'll say it again. Bitcoin is now at $80,000, marking a new all-time high for Bitcoin. If we back out here, we can see previous all-time high was back in March, and now we have surpassed that and even moved higher. Now you can see here on my chart, I don't even have any resistance lines because, quite frankly, we're up in no man's land right now. There is no resistances. The supports here are marked down at about 72K, where the previous all-time high was. And in today's video, we're going to talk about what's going on with Bitcoin, what happened that caused Bitcoin to shoot up so dramatically. We're going to talk about the new incoming administration, what that means for Bitcoin, and my plans for Bitcoin. But before we get to that, be sure to subscribe, be sure to hit that like button, and be sure to follow me on X and Threads. These videos are usually about 10 minutes or so long, and I greatly appreciate if you guys could just kind of make it through the whole video, and then I'd also appreciate a comment or a like. That would greatly help this channel, considering I provide this information just kind of as a free service and kind of a hobby for myself. So Bitcoin right now is at 80,000, and quite frankly, we've been talking about all year where I've said multiple times that I do think that we're going to wind up seeing a new all-time high before the end of the year, and that's kind of what we have right now. RSI sitting at about 77 on the daily, so we're overbought currently, and the mood is a mood of extreme greed for Bitcoin. So not a huge surprise right here. And so what we saw over the last week was both the Fed lowering interest rates, which is a big boost to crypto, and the election of Trump and the new Trump administration means something very interesting, and that will be hopefully the ouster of Gary Gensler, the head of the SEC. Now, my last video, I said that it doesn't really matter who wins because I really think that either way, this man is going to be gone. And I think that the likelihood of Gary Gensler being removed is actually much higher with a Trump administration than it was with a potential Harris administration. And so it's important to put this all into context, because the reason why Bitcoin has been kind of lackluster for the most part for this year, and the fact that we haven't really seen the post having a boom that we've seen in previous cycles, is largely because of the SEC and this man, Gary Gensler, preventing the adoption of Bitcoin and crypto. The SEC has tried at every single turn to stifle crypto activity. They've gone and they've prosecuted cases against Ripple, against Grayscale, and they just have done everything possible to hold crypto down. Well, crypto is much like trying to hold a beach ball down in water, right? You can hold it down for a little while, but then eventually it's going to spring out and it's going to fly higher. And this is partially what we're starting to see here. So we had something very interesting here. We had the former SEC head of Office of Internet Enforcement, John Reed Stark. He said in X basically that the war on crypto by the SEC has been lost. Okay, the SEC has lost its war on crypto, and that's such an important thing that we need to talk about here, because if you have been paying attention about the regulatory environment here in the U.S., I'm not going to go into detail here, but the simple fact is that they refuse to regulate, and instead the SEC has been persecuting cases against a lot of these crypto companies, and not being wholly clear on what's a security and what's not a security, and what's a commodity and what's not a commodity, and what's okay to trade and what's not okay to trade. And so they've been basically doing everything possible to hold crypto down. Now, this is a monumentous development. I do expect that Bitcoin will push even higher than what we're seeing here right now at 80K. I actually think that we're going to wind up seeing 100K here within, I think, the next 6 months to a year. I think it's very possible we wind up seeing $100,000 Bitcoin. Now, the other thing that happened was the fact that the Fed cut interest rates, and they cut it by 0.25%. Now, this is something that was expected, but as I've said in multiple videos, the fact is that every time the Fed cuts interest rates, it's bullish for Bitcoin, and I expect it's going to keep happening. So we wind up seeing the next FOMCs that happen. We're going to wind up seeing a continuing environment, especially if the Trump administration comes in and they have a new head of the Federal Reserve. They actually get rid of the current head and they replace him. But if they do replace Jerome Powell, then I do expect they're going to wind up they're going to put somebody in that's probably more conducive to having lower interest rates, and lower interest rates are positive for Bitcoin. So you have multiple catalysts that are going to be on the horizon for Bitcoin. Not only do you have the power of the halving that's reducing the supply coming out of the market, but you also have the demand side. We're going to probably wind up seeing lower taxes and maybe even potentially stimulus injected into the economy. Again, it's very possible that Bitcoin will achieve that 100K within the 6 months to a year. And if you've bought Bitcoin at basically any time the last couple of years, you're in profit. The simple fact is, every single person who has bought Bitcoin within the last 24 hours is in profit on Bitcoin, and that is a huge development. Now, on the other side here, we're actually starting to see, when we talk about Bitcoin dominance went all the way up to about 60%, and it came back down again. And this, I think, is actually going to be the start of something that's probably more akin to like a Bitcoin or altcoin winter, maybe even, because I do think that Bitcoin is the safety play. Now that the election's over, I do think that you'll wind up seeing a shift towards altcoins as people take their money out of Bitcoin and go into altcoins with a more favorable regulatory environment. All right, so if we go ahead and take a look at our adoption for Bitcoin spot ETFs, this was huge, massive news over the last about a month or so. Huge inflows, and we're talking about levels of 2 billion here, billion here, so 3 billion, 5 billion, and let's call that almost $7 billion or so of inflows in the last 4 weeks, okay, for Bitcoin spot ETFs. Now, that's enormous, okay? That's one of the reasons why Bitcoin's been up so much. Expect that when the markets open again on Monday, to see more inflows to Bitcoin, based on what we've seen here, Bitcoin actually coming above 80K. So I expect that we're going to wind up seeing more companies buying Bitcoin, more individual investors buying Bitcoin spot ETFs, and continuing the cycle of adoption. Now, on the other side, we've seen a large amount of short liquidations, over $100 million worth of short liquidations, and this, I think, is only the beginning. There's still a significant amount of shorts out there, and there's a lot there's even more that can be potentially squeezed when it comes to Bitcoin liquidations. In fact, if we go ahead and take a look at the heat map, I'm going to bring it up here for a sec, the heat map, and we zoom out a little bit to 1 week, 2 weeks. There are still, there's not a lot, but there are still short positions that are mostly above like 81 or so, 81,000. But there are more positions that are apparently on the other side of that. So these positions that are sitting about 75K or so. So there's massive liquidation on the other side. So just be aware that if we do wind up getting a pullback, then it's possible that these longs instead will get liquidated here on this side. So there is a little bit of risk coming for Bitcoin. So just be aware that if we do break below those levels, we could actually wind up going a little bit lower. Now, the other thing that is really important when it comes to Bitcoin is the fact that the exchange reserve has been decreasing, and it's been decreasing at a rapid pace. We saw over the last month that we went from 2.6 million Bitcoin on exchanges all the way down to about 2.593 million Bitcoin on exchanges. So we're starting to see this continuation of drawdown of Bitcoin on exchanges, and this is something that will I think continue to happen, and we'll see much less Bitcoin on exchanges. And as you have less Bitcoin on exchanges and you have more demand, then you have a price increase. Now, the reason why I think that we're going to wind up seeing that is because if you go ahead and take a look at the Google Trends for Bitcoin search, you can see here that on about the 6th of November, Bitcoin interest and searches actually hit this 100 mark, which is basically the peak of interest on Google searches. So we're starting to see a situation where people are interested in Bitcoin. They're searching for Bitcoin. They're looking how to buy it in an environment where Bitcoin is hitting new all-time highs and the incoming administration is going to be very friendly to crypto. So this is something that I expect is going to push the price much higher. You get some FOMO and some short squeezes, and you're going to wind up seeing Bitcoin rocket to 100K. Now, last thing I want to talk about is Bitcoin options. I want to give you a quick update on Bitcoin options. Now, traders are actually still very bearish, and this position really hasn't changed much since the end of the year. You're sitting here at a max pain price of about 65K. And so with the 65K, this is going to be on the 27th of December, the end of the year price. That's going to be about $8.3 billion worth of short and long positions that apparently think that Bitcoin is going back to 65K. I'd be surprised, but this would actually be an excellent buying opportunity for me. This is where I would be buying some more Bitcoin. Now, speaking of which, I have not sold any of my Bitcoin. I have held onto it with the anticipation that we're going to wind up seeing higher Bitcoin prices. Now, eventually, I will wind up taking some profits because we're a new all-time high, and I would like to lock in some of my gains. Now, when I do that, I'm going to make a post on X. So if you guys are interested in seeing that, make sure you follow me on X. I'll probably also do a video as well. So make sure you guys are subscribed. And let me know what you guys think about this. If you think that the new incoming administration is going to be amazing for crypto, or if you think they're just paying lip service, leave a comment below and what your plan is to lock in some of your gains, or if you're just going to hold forever like some people will. Leave a comment below, and I will catch you guys in the next video.